Fast, accurate. You're watching WSBT 22 News at 10 on SBT2.
Good evening, I'm Suzanne Spencer. Rick has the night off. We're learning more about what happened at this house on the Blue Star Highway in Coloma. 2 bodies, 2 children went missing. Tonight, though, those girls were found safe. They were with their dad. He's also the suspect, though, now behind bars. Concerned relatives made the gruesome discovery. WSBT 22's Diane Daniels has been following this story all day and has more.
Today, the crime tape is cleared, but the ladder still remains.
Thanks, Diane. State police believe the girls will be returned to Michigan. Family members of both the mother and father want to care for them. Perez indicated he would not waive extradition to Michigan. He says he wants an attorney. The judge refused to allow any bond for Perez. He is due back in court in 10 days.
Suzanne, so hang in there.
Thanks, Bob. Privacy concerns. That's why attorneys in a sexual harassment lawsuit against Notre Dame want to keep some details away from the public. Attorneys met in private for about 40 minutes today before coming into the courtroom. The lawsuit claims a former academic coach pressured students to have sex with her daughter. Inside a St. Joseph County courtroom, a lawsuit against Notre Dame and a former academic coach is quietly moving forward. Notre Dame is also named in this lawsuit. I asked their attorney for comment after the hearing earlier today. He did not have one. A university spokesman also declined to comment. Now, if the case goes to trial, some of that information could be released to the public. An update tonight on a bill that would require a prescription for cold medicine that contains pseudoephedrine. The House Public Health Committee chairwoman says she won't bring up the bill. She cites a lack of support for the measure. In previous years, the requirement has been the subject of pretty tense debate. House Speaker Brian Bosma endorsed the prescription requirement. This week, he said he was open to other options for fighting meth production. Police are looking to see if this man is responsible for several burglaries in downtown South Bend. The South Bend Tribune reporter Christian Scheckler says 42-year-old Kevin Simmons is charged with a December break-in at a photography studio. Since mid-December, at least 6 firms reported similar stories to police. They say someone was breaking in, stealing wallets and equipment. Now, since Simmons' arrest, those reports have stopped. This man is pleading not guilty in the murder of Elkhart County native Amanda Blackburn. 24-year-old Deano Gordon is charged with murder, burglary, and theft. Blackburn was shot and killed during a break-in back in November. She was pregnant with her second child at the time. 2 other men are also charged in the case. New at 10, South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg wants the city to be more open. He just signed an executive order creating a citywide diversity and inclusion initiative. He says it'll promote equal opportunity in the workforce. It requires the city to develop a strategic plan over the next 6 months. A new diversity and inclusion officer will lead those efforts. So far, no one has yet been named for that position. Since the recession in 2008, the RV industry has rebounded, reaching a 6-year high. WSBT 22's Danielle Kennedy takes us inside the 42nd annual RV and Camping Show in South Bend.
More than 80% of RVs built in North America are made right here in north central Indiana.
Well, we're seeing more cases of bird flu in southwest Indiana. This is a different strain from the virus last summer. Federal officials have confirmed they found the bird flu at a commercial turkey farm in Du Bois County. Indiana health officials say the farm has 60,000 birds. The flock will have to be euthanized to prevent the spreading of the disease. Quarantine is in place for nearby farms. Now, last year, the bird flu led to 48 million birds being put down. Well, another bad day on Wall Street. Just minutes after opening, the Dow dropped around 400 points. And at one point, it was down more than 500 points. The Dow closed down 390 points at 15,988. And the Nasdaq also ended the day down 126 points at 4488. Well, at last night's debate, he said there aren't many conservatives that come from Manhattan. Now Ted Cruz is apologizing, sort of. Hear what he said about New Yorkers tonight. The ranchers' standoff against the federal government continues in Oregon. Why they say a meeting with the locals had to be canceled.
And the weather's felt like spring the past couple of days, but don't be fooled, it's still January. Mother Nature will remind us of that this weekend. We'll tell you all about it next on WSBT 22 News at 10.
Accurate first alert weather forecast with meteorologist Bob Werner.
We were just chatting about the weekend. It seems like tomorrow is going to be the day to enjoy.
If you need to get out and do something, definitely tomorrow will be the preferable day, but neither of the next 2 days, next 3 days really, are going to be very nice, especially Sunday and Monday. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about today. It was not too bad today. So once again, Mother Nature needed to remind us it is January.
It is. She just had to do it right now, of course.
She did, right for the weekend, right?
Thanks, Bob. Ted Cruz apologizes to New York after his comments on the city's values. Why he wasn't really talking for New Yorkers? The answer coming up next. The armed group occupying a federal wildlife refuge in Oregon won't be meeting with locals. They say a judge denied the group access to fairgrounds to talk to residents. The meeting was supposed to explain their position and when they plan to leave. They hope a meeting might occur on Monday if they find a place to hold it. The group objects to a federal land policy. It seized buildings in support of a local father and son convicted of arson. Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel is using a breakfast to restore people's trust. That breakfast is in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. This comes after another video was released of a white officer fatally shooting a black unarmed teen. Outside, protesters tried to block the entrance of the breakfast and some disrupted that event. Several prominent pastors also boycotted the annual event. Mayor Emanuel said the city won't reach its potential without restoring trust between police and communities. Well, Donald Trump is barreling toward the Republican nomination, but as we get closer to the first votes, one candidate appears able to challenge Trump. Weijia Jiang is following Ted Cruz on the campaign trail to find out how the Texas senator has risen in the polls. She has more from Columbia, South Carolina.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz is defending comments made during Thursday night's showdown between GOP presidential candidates.
South Carolina is the first in the South primary and the third state to vote after Iowa and New Hampshire. Since 1980, GOP voters have chosen the eventual Republican nominee every time but once. In 2012, they voted for Newt Gingrich, who eventually lost out to Mitt Romney. Well, coming up tonight, Notre Dame had some epic moments against Duke last season in men's basketball, but can they get another one tomorrow? And one of the most successful high school football coaches in the NIC is stepping down. Here's why Ben Downey says now is the right time to take a break from football.
They will be hard-pressed to find someone as good as
good
that,
for him,
but
though.
it's a good job. You're right, good for him. It's the time to be with his kids, and he makes the right choice.
It is. Thanks, Pete. Bob's got a final look at weather coming up next.
Early January, so now it's time to go the other way.
I know. All right, well, our next news is on at 11 on WSBT 22. Catch us anytime on WSBT.com or the news app. Good evening, I'm Suzanne Spencer. Rick has the night off. As gas prices continue to fall, RV sales continue to grow. WSBT 22's Danielle Kennedy is here. Danielle, the industry is at a 6-year high.
Coming back from an all-time low during the recession in 2008, Suzanne.
Just a few minutes, Suzanne.
Thanks, Bob. One man was hurt tonight after a shooting in South Bend. Dispatch tells us a man walked into Memorial Hospital with a gunshot wound. He told officers it happened at the Corby Home Apartments. That's near Edison Intermediate School. No word yet if police have named any suspects. The man accused of a double murder in Berrien County wants an attorney. He's fighting extradition from Colorado. 24-year-old Alex Perez made his first court appearance just hours ago. He's accused of kidnapping his 2 daughters. Right now, they're in custody of a child welfare agency in Colorado. Police believe Perez killed their mother and grandfather on Wednesday. 27-year-old Renee Mitchell and 67-year-old John Mitchell were found dead when relatives became suspicious. A woman who works across the street from the scene called 911.
The oldest daughter came back in.
State police believe the girls will be returned to Michigan. Family members of both the mother and father want to care for them. Well, privacy concerns. That's why attorneys in a sexual harassment lawsuit against Notre Dame want to keep some details away from the public. The lawsuit claims a former academic coach pressured students to have sex with her daughter. The lawyers are working on an agreement to keep details of that confidential. A judge will ultimately decide if that's granted in a few weeks. So why should the public not know this information that's in the discovery? Notre Dame's attorney and a spokesman both chose not to comment. An update tonight on an Indiana bill that would require a prescription for cold medicine that contains pseudoephedrine. The House Public Health Committee chairwoman says she won't bring up that bill. She cites a lack of support for the measure. Now, in previous years, the requirement has been the subject of a pretty tense debate. House Speaker Brian Bosma endorsed the prescription requirement. He also says this week he said he is open to other options for fighting meth production. The armed group occupying a federal wildlife refuge in Oregon won't be meeting with locals. They say a judge denied the group access to fairgrounds to talk to residents. The meeting was supposed to explain their position and when they plan to leave. They hope a meeting might occur Monday if they can even find a place to hold it. The group objects to a federal land policy. It seized buildings in support of a local father and son convicted of arson. Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel is using an annual breakfast to restore people's trust. That breakfast honors Martin Luther King Jr. This comes after another viral video was released of a white officer fatally shooting a black unarmed teen. Outside, protesters tried to block the entrance of the breakfast, and some even disrupted the event. Several prominent city pastors also boycotted the annual event. Mayor Emanuel says the city won't reach its potential without restoring trust between police and communities. New at 11, South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg signed an executive order to make the city be more open. It's part of his new diversity and inclusion initiative. The design is to promote equal opportunity in the workforce and requires the city to develop a strategic plan over the next 6 months. A new diversity and inclusion officer will lead those efforts, but no one yet has been named for that position. The Purdue's pep band joined Elkhart Central's band for tonight's basketball game against Bremen at Northside Hall. Earlier in the day, the Boiler Brass Band members played at the Roosevelt Steam Academy. It's part of Partners in Music, where bands travel around the state to get students excited about playing music. Well, stay tuned. Pete and Adam will have the highlights of that game and much more coming up as they get ready for another night of Hoop It Up.
And it's felt like spring the past couple of days, but don't be fooled. It's still January, and Mother Nature will remind us of that this weekend. We'll tell you about it next on WSBT 22 News at 11. Mother Nature is having her way.
Her way of 20 degrees below zero.
Wind chill, yeah, that's pretty tough.
All right, thanks, Bob. We've got another big night of high school hoops. Some important games with conference standings hanging in the balance. Hoop It Up starts next.